And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the beautiful Ridge Florist Studios in the city of Charm, Avon Park, Florida. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, any comments, please put them right down below, and we'll interact with you and get your answers. If you have people you'd like us to interview or topics you'd like us to broach, we're more than happy to do that. Today, we have John Hallman, who is with Defend Rural Florida, and something that is...
Defending rural Florida, I'm sorry.
Defending rural Florida. Thank you,
Yes.
John. And one thing that's floated across my radar screen here is Senate Bill 180, which I didn't know anything about until earlier this week. It was signed into law back on June the 26th by Governor Ron Desantis. And apparently the idea was to focus on emergency management and disaster recovery, but somehow it's been either co-opted or has the unintended consequences of giving developers kind of a carte blanche to do what they like. And well, first of all, John, good to have you with us today. Glad to talk to you.
Thank you.
Can
Glad to be here.
Can you tell us how SB 180 came to be? What did you track it through its developing stages?
Yeah, I did pretty much. It was one of many bills that I was tracking for Defending Rural Florida. We had some other bills that were basically, so many of these bills, Barry, are that come out of Tallahassee over especially the last few years, is really been stripping local governments, usurping their authority to manage growth management, right? And decide how they want to build and with public input and allowing the members of the community to have a say. And so developers are unhappy because many counties are now realizing that they're getting overdeveloped. They've allowed too much development and the infrastructure is crumbling. Orange County, for example, is really wanting to put the brakes on development because they're so overdeveloped that these hurricanes that crisscrossed Florida last year, they received so much flooding, much more than they ever have in the history of Orange County, even with hurricanes in the past. And that's because of all of the development basically paved over everything, that where these waters come in, they don't have anywhere to go. And so it's causing flooding damage. And so many counties are starting to take a look like, wait a minute, maybe we need to, slow down and, do some studies. Let's see how the impact of a new development is going to affect the infrastructure. Because what's happening is they're not doing that. The infrastructure is hurting after a development comes in. The developer didn't pay much in regards to all the infrastructure that's needed, and finding out that the local taxpayers, property taxpayers, are the ones that are having to bear the brunt of the extra cost. So they're trying to slow down and look at it. And of course, the big developers in Florida are not happy because they just want to keep developing. And so that's what's been going on. So now to SB 180. SB 180 was filed by Senator Nick DeSegli, who, said we need to deal with the 3 hurricanes that crisscrossed Florida last year in 2024, and see how we can help these communities rebuild and rebuild faster. Okay, that makes sense. And so there are parts of this bill, I'd like to say, that do seem okay, do seem to help local governments respond quicker to a disaster like a hurricane, but they put in a couple of sections in the bill. So it's a 50 or 60 page bill, covers many things about disaster response, but they put in a section that basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said that any local governing board, a county or a city, cannot change, amend their comp plans, their zoning laws that would be deemed restrictive or burdensome. Now, they don't define what restrictive and burdensome would be considered, but they also said that not only cannot do that, it's retroactive to August 1st. So basically, just about a year ago. So anything from August 2024 all the way through, I believe it's October of 2027. So anybody that changed their comp plans could could be facing a lawsuit because the developers would say, well, that was restrictive and burdensome, and I have to take it to court and see what what the court says. But this is causing a lot of problems. I could go on about Orange County and Deltona City, who did a moratorium because they wanted to be able to step back and look at what the damage is from the development before they proceed on with any more. And they're all getting sued right now. So, this has become a really big problem.
It seems like for the past 40 years or so, the comp plan has been something that's been rather chiseled in stone, but this seems to supersede and negate all the work that each of the individual counties has put into their comp plan to develop their county the way they want it
Right.
developed.
No, exactly, exactly. And and I've always felt that they know best. I mean, the local governing board, because everything always gets public input, right? They always have a public hearing to let the public have a say. The people in the community have a say on how their county or their city will grow going forward. And so it makes sense to do it that way because they know best. The local county commissioners, can get input, can do studies, and so it makes more sense for the state to step in and say, we're just taking you out of the way, and you're just going to have to do things our way. Doesn't make any sense, and it really is so many bills have come out that you can just see the handwriting from the developers and their lobbyists and their attorneys to try to override local control so that they can keep developing whether anybody likes it or not.
It seems also that on the federal level, you have Donald Trump, who has been, whether he's aware of what he's doing or not, has been really a 10th Amendment kind of guy, returning a lot of the federal centralization back to the states. But here in Florida, we
Hmm.
don't we see the exact opposite, where instead of deferring to the counties because what's good for Volusia County may not be good for Hillsborough County. What's good for
Exactly.
Highlands
Right.
County may not be good for Duval County. So
Right.
it seems like they are more centralizing power than looking at these individual counties because, as you and I both know, the East Coast and the West Coast and the Central, that's three totally different areas of
Of
Florida.
course. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Like you said, you can't do a one size fits all. That makes no sense because each county is different. I mean, there are some counties that have more rural areas or more wetlands, environmentally sensitive land, and they need to look at things differently than, so I live up in Madison County in North Florida, and our needs in Madison County are different than Highlands County.
Hmm.
And how they do growth management here in Madison would be different than in Highlands, and that makes sense. So yeah, the state's just imposing a one size fits all, and really just because they want to let the developers keep building, and just keep building and building without understanding the consequences. I've been pushing more counties to do a moratorium because what each county needs to do right now, because so many counties have become overdeveloped, is they need to be able to do an impact study and see, what the flooding situation is, the drainage and the sewage and all the burden that's been put on the infrastructure that's causing so much problems right now. The Because of so much development that our aquifers are being drained. Florida's water availability to water is now been projected to run out in the next 2 decades, where we'll have trouble having water. And so, if we don't take a pause in this state and take a look at, how can we grow going forward and still preserve some of our rural areas, some of our agriculture, because now we have a food security issue as farms and ranches are now being sold and converted into development. Where's our food going to come from? We're going to be so dependent either on other states or foreign countries for our food because we don't have the land to produce our own food anymore. So yeah, those are all serious issues, and SB 180 is just another example of how the state legislature continues to usurp local authority.
Another side issue, which I was not aware of, is that here in Highlands County, we had impact fees for a while. They never were enacted at any more than 10%. They went fallow, and finally now the county commission is talking about, well, we may have to have another consultant come in, do another study to decide how and at what level impact fees could be enacted. But this SB 180 apparently also affects that as well.
Absolutely, because Manatee County, uh, they passed after August 1st of last year, they decided that any development was, the developers needed to put up more money to cover all the extra infrastructure costs so that it doesn't create a burden for the other homeowners. And so they imposed a higher impact fee that now they are under lawsuit or being threatened to be sued under 180 by developers who said that is restrictive and burdensome. So, we're going to have to see how that plays out. All this, there's going to be several, court cases. You mentioned that so many of the counties have banded together now to actually file a class action lawsuit against 180. So it's unfortunate now that all this is going to happen, and how long it takes for these court cases to go through to get a decision. At the same time, while these developers are suing the counties, it could be an injunction where they, at least till the court, where they can't do any of this stuff, where Highlands County wouldn't be able to do their an increase in the impact fees until the court cases got settled. So we at Defending Rural Florida, we have called upon the state legislature in the first week, the first week of interim committee weeks, or what you could call them early committee weeks, that they'll have in October, which will be in advance of the 60-day session that would start in January. And so we're calling on them that first week in October to have a special session and to take 180 up and either repeal it or take out that language that restricts the counties from being able to manage their own growth management. So that we're going to be calling on that.
When did you put that? When did you put that call out, and how much response have you gotten so far?
Yeah, so I've put it out, sent it out to a lot of groups, and told them that they need to do this. So I've been told that several groups have. There's one group called the Republican Liberty Caucus of Florida,
Oh, Bob
and
White, yeah.
Bob White. Yep, uh, they just sent theirs to the governor and to Speaker Perez and Senate President Albritton, calling calling for a special session in October to repeal or amend 180. So I'm hoping other groups will follow suit. I put it out to as many people as I could. So
Yeah, I did see your Substack on that, and to get that, and hopefully this will get it out as well, because I think there are a lot of people who don't know much about SB 180 and what's happening with it. Have you gotten much feedback like mine saying, yeah, John, what's going on here? Have you gotten that kind of feedback?
yeah, I've been, so if anybody wants to follow us on our Facebook page, Defending Rural Florida on our Facebook page, I've been putting out a lot of information on 180 and action steps to fight this. So that's a good source for anybody, because like I keep everybody abreast of what's going on and who else is being hurt and what we can do about it. So if anybody wants to do that, that'd be great. They can follow along. We post on other bills that are coming out. And of course, during the session, we put out alerts quite a bit on different bills, other bad bills. There were several bad bills. We were able to defeat two other bad bills that would have taken away the county's growth management authority. So it's just the developers don't give up easy. They keep they keep looking for more ways to through legislation to shut down local government control. So
Hey, I know that Orange County, Volusia County, Manatee. Do you have any idea how many people have signed on to this class action suit uh, to put a hold on SB 180?
yeah, I don't, Barry. I don't have I saw the other day, and so I don't have I know that several of those counties are trying to reach out to every other county and saying, please, please join. I think they have an attorney who's very good at this, and basically a city commissioner from Deltona said, you know, it would only cost a county $10,000 to join in on this class action lawsuit, which is a very good deal when we consider how much it's going to cost counties if they don't challenge this. And so it's going to be, if the developers get their way with 180 and win in the court, this is going to put such burden on each of the cities and counties, because the development is going to happen whether they feel they can absorb it or not. And so it's, you know, so it's important. So I can get anybody the information to the attorney that's handling many of the counties right now. I can get that to you, Barry. So if you want to put that out, if
Yes.
anybody's interested, contact this attorney.
Well, I will tell you that our county is releasing their budget that they're working on, and the operative number now in Highlands, it's not the biggest county in Florida, is $205 million. So $10,000 for them is like a rounding error. Okay,
Sure.
and I, in addition to this class action suit that these counties are putting together, is there any talk of maybe some kind of an injunction to put a hold on this until the legislature decides whether they want to have a special session or this class action suit gets underway? Is there any move in that direction?
Yeah, I would have to check with that. He's, like I said, he's the one that's going to be either has or will be filing the lawsuit. I would assume he would ask for an injunction. So, but you know, we need to reach out to him to see on that. So, yeah, like I said, anybody should. From what I've been told, this attorney is, you know, if anybody, especially anybody from a county official or city official, you know, he'd be happy to talk to and talk about what the situation is and, you know, what they can do to fight this.
So because this is retroactive, and I'm not sure how they can do this, but this is retroactive to August of last year. If there's a developer who was fighting to have their zoning upped for more units per acre,
Mm-hmm.
a county commission or a city council said, no, we don't want to have quite that many in that spot. He now
Mm-hmm.
can come back and said, I feel wronged. I was done
Mm-hmm.
wrong. I can go to a judge now and say, under this new SB 180, which was signed into law again back in June 26th by Governor Ron DeSantis, uh, they can go back and seek some kind of redress for that.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, anything after August 1st, any change to the comp plan, the zoning laws, like you were just using that example. So yeah, that'd be a prime example. A developer would say, "Oh, that was restrictive and burdensome," uh, and take that to court. You know, so this has got to. Yeah, we've got to. This. What is restrictive and burdensome? It. I guess it is to the developer because they want to do massive more development. They want to increase density, where maybe counties feel they can increase density. It just won't work. They won't be able to absorb. The infrastructure will be too burdened.
Well, that is rather
Uh,
elastic language.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So who decides what's restrictive and burdensome? And I guess the developers are hoping that the judges will agree with them. And you just never know, right? Once something gets to court, I mean, I've heard some legal saying that, oh, that's ridiculous. You know, they can't use that kind of language and expect a judge, but, listen, it costs money to fight it. And, and you never know. I mean, a judge may with them and, a judge may say, look, whether I think what the county did was restrictive or burdensome doesn't matter because the Florida law says restrictive and burdensome. And because that's so open-ended, that a judge could say, well, I guess it is in a way. So this needs to be dealt with sooner than later because this is getting to be a big problem.
So I just want to make sure I'm right about this. So here in Highlands County, there was talk here several years ago about imposing a moratorium on mobile home parks. That there were
Hmm.
commissioners at that time who felt like there were plenty of mobile home parks. So if they passed that moratorium in July of last year, everything would be fine. But if they passed it in September of last year, it would be up for discussion. Am I pretty much
Uh,
accurate
a-
about that?
absolutely, absolutely. So it could.
Is
Go ahead.
defending rural Florida? Are you looking? I mean, we have midterms coming up. Is there a move now to try to restore home rule to the state? Because there's a lot of county commissions that, like, as we talked at the top of the program, they view their county as having unique issues. I mean, if you're over in Sarasota, and you know that the Gulf of America likes to come in on the coastline a lot. Here in Highlands
Hmm.
County, we don't have the flooding problems that they have in other parts of the state, but it really directs the way that they allow or disallow development to occur. Are there candidates now coming forward saying, look, I'm going to be a home rule candidate? If I go to Tallahassee, you're going to see things either A, repealed, or B, enacted that will give counties more say over the way they do their own business.
I Barry, I would love to see that. I mean, we're defending rural Florida is a 501c4, so we have to stay nonpartisan. And so we do, we look at what's going on in the Florida legislature as far as legislation. And I can tell you that it's a battle because each legislator has a political committee, especially the leadership. In this case, Daniel Perez, Ben Albritton, and Governor DeSantis, but so many of them have political committees where a person can make unlimited contributions. So, you have your traditional campaign account when you're running for office, and that's limited. You can donate, I think, 1,000 to a state House or Senate race, and 3,000 to a cabinet seat or a governor's race. It's limited. So they have these political committees where, I mean, you can donate as much as you want. If you want to donate $1 million, you can donate $1 million, and then they have that much money to spend. And and what they do is another little sneaky thing they do with these political committees is they're afraid people will say, like, a big developer, let's say, for instance, FP&L or Duke, gave a massive amount of money they'll send it to an obscure political committee that's created by a political operative, and they'll start funneling the money around, so you'll never be able to see where the money originated, really, without doing major investigation. And then they finally get it to the legislators they need to control. So the campaign finance reform is another issue that really needs to be addressed in the legislature, because massive amounts of dark money is being used and hidden. There's no transparency. And that's how the developers control a lot what's going on in Tallahassee. There's numerous bills that have been passed that were strictly to help developers bypass local governing authorities. So that's a whole nother issue, is campaign finance reform and changing the way things are being done in Tallahassee. But to your point, yeah, I mean, I would love to see candidates run that said that they're going to restore local governing authority back to the counties and the cities. They may have a hard time because the developers are going to put up lots of money on to their opponent. So, but we got to, we're going to fight on every front because Florida's worth it, to save Florida from being totally destroyed. So, we're going to fight. I know there is one group that's talking about supporting good candidates that would preserve local governing authority over growth management. And so there's many groups that are sprouting around Florida. There's a group in Seminole County called Save Rural Seminole, and they're becoming very active and going to county commission meetings, but also trying to support good candidates. So, yeah, this is a serious thing that it's like all hands on deck, Barry. We're all going to have to take part in this,
We're
or
talking
else
with
we're in.
we're talking with John Hallman from defending rural Florida. And John, let me ask you, how long has this organization been in existence? How did this start up? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so we actually started back in February, is because I got together with several people to discuss what you and I've just been discussing. And we said, look, there needs to be somebody that's going to at least fight on the legislative front in Tallahassee. And I have 20 years of experience of being a lobbyist in Tallahassee. So I wanted to use my experience to help this organization fight bills and try to promote good bills. And we have several good bills that if you go to our website at defendingruralflorida.org, you'll see our legislative ideas, proposals that we're going to try to get filed to deal with what's going on. The Burt Harris Act, if you're familiar with Burt Harris Act, is being abused over its original intent. It was actually originally passed in 1995, but developers are using it to threaten county commissions with lawsuits. As a taking, it's like, taking of the property. If you don't upzone me, if you don't increase my density, you're causing me money and I'm suing you, right? So the Burt Harris Act is one thing we're going to deal with, because that is I have many county commissioners tell me that, John, we've been told we're going to get sued and cost us money over Burt Harris. And I said, you should fight it, because actually judges are ruling against developers on this, but they're afraid to take on that challenge in the court. So yeah, there's just many things. It's it's a big hill to climb, but we're gonna take it on. Hopefully everybody else will too.
To be honest with you, Burt Harris was a representative of Highlands County when I first moved here, and
Right.
he was one of the most conservative guys I ever had on my program, and he was a Democrat at the time. He later switched parties, but he did, I thought, everything he could to limit government, and so it's kind of ironic they're using his bill
Yeah. Oh
now.
yeah. No. I mean, yeah. No. His bill had very good intentions, and I understand what he was trying to do. So, for example, if I buy a commercial piece of property, it's zoned commercial and it's zoned for 100 units apartment building, for example, and then the county decides that no, we've changed the zoning on it, you can only do 50. Well, now I paid a premium price for that commercial property to be able to build 100 units of apartment buildings. You've now cut that in half. That is a financial cost to the landowner. In that case, that person would have a right to say, well, whoa, wait a minute, what you did has hurt me financially, right? So it's more when they get downzoned that Burt Harris was to protect you, not upzone. So many of these ranches are zoned ag, and the developer buys them and says, now I want to put in a PUD, and you're not allowing me. Well, hey, listen, developer, you bought it for ag. It was ag prices, and now you're saying Burt Harris says they have to zone it to a planned urban development or a master plan city. Like, that's crazy. That's not what Burt Harris was about. But that's what they're doing. And so that's, again, that's something we want to address in the legislature.
So, John, if people want to get involved, they're hearing this and they're saying, look, I don't want this to happen in my county. What can they do? What is your suggestion from them getting involved at some level?
Yeah, no, I mean, well, first of all, contact me, you know, and, you know, go to our website and sign up to get emails. But also contact me, because hopefully I can help them, get into to the right person, which might be this attorney handling the class action lawsuit, or I can help them with the laws that have been passed, or so yeah, so reach out to us, and I'll do everything I can to help.
John, you're a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate this. If you want to find out more, you can go to defendingruralflorida.org or the Facebook page, Defending Rural Florida. And John, in several weeks, when as this thing begins to firm up, can we give you a call back and talk to you a little bit more
Yeah.
about it?
Oh, absolutely, Barry. Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'll keep you updated on what's going on. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
We really appreciate you and all Defending Rural Florida is doing. You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Floor Studios here in the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any comments, thoughts, ideas, suggestions, put them in the comments below as we continue to look for truth, justice in the American way. This is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.